Alright, whenever people ask me what is a good custom keyboard that I should start with, I usually suggest something from QWERTY Keys or Meletrix. Over the years, these two brands, they have consistently delivered great products, right? With leading innovations, good technology, all for a good price. Today, we will be taking a look at the latest update from Meletrix with their new Zoom TKL DYNA. The original TKL Essential, it was a hit, but what about this one? Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is Scott K. So the Zoom series keyboards have always been solid, right? With their great design, performance, as well as features. When I took a look at the original a few years back, the unique glass feature, remember that one? Really helped to set it apart. Along with the recent Zoom 75 TIGA, Meletrix has now launched the latest rendition of the TKL keyboard called TKL DYNA. DYNA shares similar design aspects as a 75% TIGA, but with a few changes that make it even better in my opinion. The naming's kind of strange, I know it's from like Ultraman. But what are the changes, right? Let's get started. So as the name indicates, the Zoom TKL is a 10 keyless keyboard. No numpad here. It's a good balance between a more full-size productivity-oriented keyboard and a smaller gaming-centric 75 or 65%. A lot of people call it like the Goldilocks size. As the original was, the overall design of the Zoom TKL DYNA is clean and minimal. I believe the main change with the update is actually in this little corner. Now the DYNA has a screen here, and similar to how the 75% was, it's been updated. It also has a hole. Yep, that's where the knob goes. The knob is actually a KO hot swap design, which is very nice, right? You don't have to solder it anymore. Unlike the 75% TIGA that was launched a little bit earlier this year, in my opinion, the DYNA has much less of a busy look. And I feel that it's a more balanced design in general. I really love how the side profile of the DYNA is as well. That floating look, right? With a tiny bit of contrasting color scheme visible. I really do love the green and copper look here going on right here, like as you can see. Speaking of which, I do have the forest green colorway, but it's like one of 15 different color combinations. They also offer a PC case polycarbonate, which I feel will be very interesting. Like, I don't even remember the last time I tried a polycarbonate case, so I'm actually really curious now. The finish is very nice, and the case features like chamfers right here to add a little bit of detail, a little bit of flair to otherwise a simple design. While the overall design is clean, the embellishment to the case is actually below it. The cross pattern from the 75% TIGA is also present right here, but what is interesting is this thing. There are little LED floodlight lenses built into the lower case. Here's a quick preview of what it looks like. As you'd expect, the DYNA also has the quick release mechanism you see everywhere. The ball and catch mechanism is fairly proven now, and it offers reliable operation in general. It's also good to see that Meletrix put these like little silicone corners here. They work as force brake as well as to keep the upper case more snug. Inside, you can see the center cover that helps to keep the battery as well as like the daughter board and internals hidden and clean. Here's another look at the floodlight lens from the inside, right? While on the topic of the floodlights and the lenses and whatever, let's take a look at the PCB which will actually power them. You can actually select from two different options with the Zoom TKL DYNA. You have the standard 1.6mm, thicker non-flex cut PCB, or the thinner 1.2mm flex cut PCB. Both come as tri-mode, which means it has wired, Bluetooth, and 2.4 GHz wireless options. They are both south-facing and hot swap and feature per key RGB. What is actually a big upgrade from the original though is actually the polling rate. Both the PCBs offer 8000 Hz polling rate for 0.6 millisecond latency. One thing I did notice that I thought was a little odd was the return of the ribbon cable, right? I thought they did away with that. But when I asked, they told me that it was to ensure performance for the 8K polling rate. As long as there's a reason, right? You can also see the little light module at each corner of the PCB that actually powers those floodlights as I mentioned before. The PCB also features these hooks, right? Like right here. It's in the situation that you want to use the isolated O-ring mount or the elastic bar, which is similar to like a leaf spring mount. The other two mounts, this thing could do 4 different mounts, the other two will actually go straight to the plate. Speaking of plates, for this example, they sent me 2 different ones, the softer PC plate and the stiffer aluminum plate. The plate has the tabs for a classic top mount and also to take on these little silicone buttons which they call a gel particle. I have actually tried these, all of these and more with the Zoom 65 V3 before, which had like crazy amounts of mounts, so I kind of have an idea of what they're all about. Okay, so there are lots of customization options with this Dyna, but this one right here, it takes the cake. The Dyna has 3 different sound modification foam packages. You can do the classic foam, which is like P foam and P foam's friends, then the pour-on foam package with like the thin pour-on sound foam, and finally, my favorite actually, the Cork sandwich, which you have seen in the Zoom 75 TIGA. That, in my opinion, sounded the nicest. Okay, since I have all this stuff, I'm going to build this out in 2 different ways. One way is a flexi foam approach. Since we all know that like what P foam sounds like, I'm gonna skip that one, and I'm actually gonna use the pour-on foam package here. So for this, I am also going to use a PET sheet as well. I think when you're dealing with such cut up thin PCBs, a thin sheet of PET really helps to prevent some of that sound leak. It does help the acoustics overall. So we're going to do the PET/pour-on sheet sandwich right onto the PCB. For this build, I'm also going to be using the Wuque Stupid Stab, which is as it sounds, stabs for stupid people. So I'm just kidding. It's supposed to be so easy to tune that anyone could do it, even stupid people. I am also going to use the pour-on plate foam right here, and then top it all off with a soft PC plate. For the switches, I'll be using a set of the Arowana gold switches. These are the long stem like pole version of this series that has a nice and poppy deep sound, which I really enjoy. Full nylon housing here as well as a T5 stem, it's a nice and smooth feel. But before I assemble it all, I will also attach this lower PCB pour-on foam to the PCB, kind of creating like a tape mod. Now, I know there are 4 different mounting styles as I mentioned before, but luckily I have tried all those out with the Zoom 65 V3 and also a lot of them with the Zoom 75 TIGA, so I have an idea of what I want to actually use for this build. So for this build, I am going to go with the O-ring mount straight to the PCB. I think out of the 4, the O-ring and the leaf spring, or the elastic torsion bar, or whatever they call it, are the 2 most balanced. So now thanks to the ball and catch, the assembly is also very super quick, so this is pretty much what it looks like once you get it done. Now to finish it all off, I will be using a set of PBTFans Emma, which I love how they did the double shot on these series of keycaps right here. I don't always get to use nice green keycaps, so when I get a chance to, I get pretty excited. So here's the overall look of the keyboard. I really love how these deep greens or the deep red keyboards turn out, right? It's so rich looking. And the overall color contrast really helps the keyboard look nice and balanced. I'm not sure if I like this better or the latest Neo 75, but both are just gorgeous in this green color. So with all the flex cuts, how does this thing feel? Well, as expected, right? It's flexible and soft, right? With isolated flex. What about the sound? Let's find out. Even for a flex cut build, the sound is actually pretty prominent. However, you can definitely hear all the foam inside with this build. I mean, it's a foam build. But this is the kind of build, it's still very popular with a lot of people, and if you like it, right? There's no wrong or right in this situation. Okay, now let's explore another interesting build, which is what I prefer, the Cork build. So for this one, the lower case would be left empty. I'll be using the standard thickness, non-flex cut PCB as well. I also got this super thin cork sheet right here, and then the cork plate foam, or plate cork, I don't know, it's not a foam, right? To top it all off, I'll be using the classic aluminum plate here as well. To keep some things a little bit consistent though, I'm still gonna be sticking with the same Arowana gold switches that we have used in the previous build. However, for this build, I'm actually going to use the silicone leaf spring mount, or they call it the torsion bar. Honestly, I think this is the most balanced for the TKL DYNA, because I feel like it just sounds better in my opinion when it goes to the PCB instead of the plate. How about the feel then, right? Even with the stiffer PCB and the plate, you still got a nice dampened feel, which I feel is nice. Lots of feels. It's thanks to the leaf mount. Since this is a sound build, what about the sound? Let's find out. Yep, that's what I remember from the previous TIGA build that I really enjoyed. The Cork does a good job of making a nice, clean, deeper sound profile in my opinion, without the overly marbliness from the foam. One thing I did notice is that lack of all the sound amplifiers that the foam build had, it makes this build a little bit more subdued versus the previous one. But this is the build that I would actually use for myself. For me, it just sounds more natural, and that's kind of like the sound profile that I am going for. Okay, so the Zoom TKL DYNA. In my opinion, the sequel is definitely better than the original. While the original brought forth the concept of a high quality, high performance keyboard at a very good price, the DYNA takes that and blows it out of the water. The design isn't too crazy, right? Yet it's embellished enough with a nice screen and the knob. Meletrix gave the users a little bit more options to shape their keyboard sound more than before this time. The different mounting options give you the adjustability to the shape, how it feels, and all in all, it's a great experience overall with a fairly modest price of $195 starting, which is about $20 or so more than the original Essential Edition. Given that, if you're in the market for a good keyboard to go deeper into this hobby, right, you move on from the Rainies and stuff like that, the Meletrix Zoom TKL DYNA is a great starting point. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll have more content for you in the future. Thanks.